Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. We are here live at Headset. I'm here with Liz, and we're going to go over 420 data as we approach 420, the biggest cannabis holiday out there. We're going to dive into these reports and see what kind of fun stuff we come up with. A commercial history of 420, who's buying what on the biggest day of the year. And so just jumping right into it, there's a sales bump on 420 that's an incontrovertible fact. The day has become the world's unofficial celebration of cannabis, and data shows that consumers are buying plenty of cannabis to which to celebrate. As it turns out, the day does have plenty of significant effects on the popularity of certain products. Cannabis, unsurprisingly, see a huge boost. More traditionally, medicinal products don't get as much of a bump, which is to be expected given the day's festive atmosphere. But perhaps most intriguing is the fact that the average basket amount isn't too significantly higher than on other days in the spring season. So this suggests that it's a very real 420 sales bump is actually due to the influx of one-off or first-time buyers. So is that still consistent? Are you still kind of seeing that data to be true?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's necessarily just first-time buyers, but definitely what we see is a whole lot of extra baskets on those days. So whether it's people that are, fairly habitual users that come in often, they're adding a trip that month. Maybe they usually shop every week, and in April we'll see 5 trips instead of 4. Or whether it's someone that's maybe a more infrequent user coming and making a special trip for it. What we see, I think this year we did see a little bit of when I say this year, our report that we just released for 2018, I think we do see a little bit of price increases, people buying nicer things. But definitely I think most of that sales bump that we're talking about is driven by more people coming into the store.
And so before we get into this year, we're going to kind of start maybe with some data from 2015 and then move chronologically forward. Since this is the first year that 420 has fallen on a Saturday with legalization, it's going to be a whole lot more interesting. But going all the way back, we saw probably one of the biggest sales increases on 420 compared to similar weekdays, being that of pre-rolls. In 2015, we saw over 250% increase in sales, and then that dropped down to almost 200% in 2016. And maybe that was a matter of convenience, maybe that was a matter of what people felt comfortable with. And moving forward to more currently, we're kind of seeing people wanting to get higher, and that's in the form of edibles and beverages and infused joints.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so are you expecting that trend this year even more so with cannabis and higher dose products?
Yeah, I think so. So, our data goes back all the way to kind of the beginning of legalization, and we've seen that be fairly consistent. I think I would personally be surprised if that was different this year. I think in most years, and especially in the last 2, beverages really have seen a pretty good increase, but it really is kind of a pre-rolls game. I think they're the really dominant player that comes out with really heavy spikes in unit volume. But plenty of other products. Usually the products that we think of is, like celebratory. So we're not seeing kind of those same lifts and things like tinctures, capsules. People's backs don't hurt anymore on 420. So we don't really see a lot of the things that are maybe geared toward pain relief or like sleep aids, that kind of stuff.
So you're not seeing topicals and tinctures so much, it's just a lot of the heavy dosage stuff? Is that?
Yeah. So topicals and tinctures, everything really does see a sales bump at 420. You've got more people in the stores, so maybe you're there to pick up, your specialty pre-roll for the weekend, and you see a topical, you're like, I've meant to try that. Standard, we've got more people in, so everything, rising tide kind of lifts all boats sort of scenario. But really, probably in those like specialty pre-rolls, in some of the beverages that feel celebratory, and also in edibles, we see those purchases really kind of be the star of the show.
So this will be the 3rd year in a row I've done 20 stores on 420. You see a lot of people in the stores. Are you one of them, Liz? Do you go on 420 and go shopping?
So this will be the first year that I'm able to. I lived in, while I was doing the data science for Headset, it was remote, so I was living in Texas and in Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
So I couldn't really go into any stores on 420, but now this year will be the first. I'm really excited to, so especially just to see what it's like, kind of how that, what types of customers are in there. One of the things when you work with as much data as we do here is you start to think of everything in numbers and patterns and algorithms, and sometimes going into the stores just to like visually look at people, like look at the things in their cart, like really inspires you to do different types of analysis and think about customers differently. So I'm super excited for that, and to buy some weed.
So you're a customer, you're also an enthusiast, and you see this stuff all the time. I found it interesting to see that a half ounce is cheaper than a full ounce, and so there is some strategy to that. What's going to be your strategy on Saturday, 420?
Oh yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I like for what I'll purchase myself. You mean? I'm really one of those people that usually asks like what's popular. It always really interests me what's popular in a market. I'm not the most particular person in really anything in my life. I'm a very like curious and exploratory person. So definitely some of the infused pre-rolls see a lot of bumps. I don't know if I've ever had an infused pre-roll, for being honest. I just moved here in February, so it's not the.
You're gonna have to try one.
I know all the SKU assortment is new to me, so I probably will pick up one of those just for fun. Just because, yeah, it's interesting. I haven't really had many beverages too, so that's my goal this year, is to like branch out and try some new beverages.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to report back.
Totally. Yeah, I'd be real excited too. Yeah.
There's some really interesting sales bumps that we saw. Like the Cannabis had over a 4,000% sales increase. Carbonated beverages over 250%. Massage oil lubes over 200%, and some shatter over 200%. So definitely the day to go to see what's being sold, discounts, and there's some new products that are only launched during that day, some strains and some other stuff. So diving into the numbers by basket size, it's important to note that the average item fell considerably both years, meaning that customers are preferring holiday bargains, which further suggests first-time or occasional buyers. The average item per basket increased from 1.7 each year to 2.6 on the holiday, which could also indicate less seasonal consumers, as they might be more interested in sampling more different products to find out what they like. All told, almost twice as many people came in and bought 50% more items than normal, though many of those items were at lower price points.
Yeah, and a lot of that's driven by pre-rolls. You know, a pre-roll is very cheap compared to, you know, buying an ounce of flour. And we do see a lot of people come in to buy pre-rolls during that time, and so I think that kind of drives down the average item price, but it keeps the baskets higher because we are picking up more items for sure.
It's almost like Black Friday, where you'll see dollar pre-rolls, and it's only for a select number until it's sold out.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like traditional retail cues.
I think so,
for
yeah.
cannabis.
And I think the retailers that are going to be like super successful and see those bumps well outside of average are the ones that do a really good job of kind of cross-promoting products when people come in. One of the things that's difficult to do with quantitative data, behavioral data, shopper data, is figure out why someone's doing something. We have to make a lot of inferences. But just in looking at the data, it seems to me that 420 is kind of treated as like a treat yourself day. Like it's not your standard Saturday night. This is a like, oh, I'm that thing that I'm like, it's been too expensive, or like, I don't know if I want to try it. Like it seems to be a day where those types of inhibitions are lower and people really want to like try something cool and interesting. So if you are a retailer, kind of those cross-promoting of like interesting, maybe higher priced items, I think would probably be a pretty successful strategy.
In your opinion, or maybe you could see the data as well, but I'm curious if this Black Friday equivalent on 420, is it the frugality that's driving additional choices or options, or I'm wondering if it's price. Is it price, or is it because it's a holiday that they just decide to spend more money?
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? What's driving those decisions?
Yeah, so when we get down, I think, into a little bit more of the consumer psychology, again, here I'm inferring based on the data rather than we don't actually survey consumers or anything, but I'm inferring. So when you think about the consumer psychology to go in and buy something and then to buy things when you're there, I think probably what most people are doing is they're going in to buy something, they're trying to get something interesting and new, and then once you're there, we have all these ancillary things that people can pick up, and so I think that is probably a little bit what it is. The when we see the lower prices and lower prices driving sales, I think a lot of it's because they go in there to purchase, you know, whatever they had in mind, and they see these prices and they're like, well, God, at that price, how could I say no?
So what's the most popular age for 420 shopping? Consumers aged 30 to 34 seem to be the most adventurous group on 420, increasing their shopping most in the edibles category, purchasing 6.5 times as many edibles on 420 as they did the preceding Wednesday. This closely followed by pre-rolls with a 5.8x increase in units purchased. So they're purchasing 6 times more than normal pre-rolls. It's got to be based on being $1 a piece.
I think so, and I think when we say 6 times more, it's not that the average person is buying 6. It's really driven by those extra baskets, so a lot more people are coming in, especially in that Gen Xer and Baby Boomer age group. We see them buy higher priced items. So I think the report from this year, we got to look at Gen Z, the like 21, 22-year-olds. So what we see with them is maybe they're influenced a lot by discount pricing, and they're buying a lot. Maybe they're having a big party. There was this cute kind of nuance in the data where we could see some of the Gen Xers where, you know, they don't shop very often, but they came in, they're like, I'm going to celebrate this time. You know, we got a babysitter. Like, you could just you could feel it in the data where they're like, I'm going to get something nice because I haven't had any in a while. And it was a really cool trend to play out underneath the data.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the conclusion with 2017's report is that 420 sales boost isn't going away anytime soon. So the market is seeing more new cannabis consumers who are probably less familiar with the day's connotations. It's already become well established with the cannabis industry Black Friday. It's interesting to note that there hasn't been a single 420 on a weekend yet. So savvy retailers can use 420 to capitalize on adventurous and occasionally lavish spirit, tailoring their promotions to promote new products and splurging a little. Either way, this sales boost from 420 is significant across the board, giving everyone involved plenty to celebrate. And so what will people buy on 420? There's predictions based on data from 3 years of the big day. We'll get into that right now.
No waiting. Right now. I'm diving right in. I'm ready for it, man.
Let's do this.
Yeah, let's do this.
So you had mentioned Gen Z, but we're going to talk about millennials because Gen Z was the first time last year that you were able to get some data, but we've had a couple years with millennials.
Totally, yeah.
Who are typically frequent purchasers but not big spenders. They open their pocketbook a little bit wider on 420. Headsets looked at specific products which do well on 420, and it's heavily weighed towards single serving items, as you might expect, although not always the size you'd think. So Headsets learned that the loyalty programs play a role in 420 sales, which should be useful information for anyone who works in retail. And most interestingly, Headsets looked at pricing and discounts for 420 and noticed that people still buy a lot of cannabis even if it's not deeply discounted. The data shows that consumers' participation in the holidays seems to be driven more by enthusiasm for cannabis and the legalization movement than bargain hunting, which speaks to the unique nature of cannabis consumer base.
Yeah.
So you were kind of mentioning you were really excited just to get out there and try it. Are you more influenced by that ability to just kind of try new things, or are you going to be driven more by discounts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably be driven more by. To me, it seems like a holiday, and my personal preference would be, you know, I can buy cheap stuff any day of the year. I wouldn't want to forfeit, you know, the ability to get like something cool and interesting that day to save a few dollars. But there's definitely people that see those, you know, really cheaply priced ounces and just, you know, take as much as the law allows.
This guy right here, be buying that $30 ounce tomorrow on Saturday.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of people that treat it that way and think, hell yeah, I'm going to fill up the pantry.
Right?
Yeah.
And we're going to get to that too, because I guess there's a post 420 report that we're going to get to in just a couple minutes, and it kind of dives into that hangover effect, which is legit.
Yeah, sales hangover, right?
Yeah.
We don't really usually think of a hangover with weed, but the retail stores definitely
People
feel
are just
it.
buying so much, so we're going to get into that in a second. But good things come in all packages. So small packages make up the bulk of sales on most days, and that remains true on 420. On a typical day, packaging smaller than an eighth makes up to 77% of total flower sales. 2-gram packages and eighths see over 100% and over 50% sales respectively, but larger packages actually gain more. So ounce packages saw an increase of over 300%, while half-ounce packages were over 200%. So the single-serving edible categories also shows notable growth with 350% increase over normal days. So what they're either looking for 2 grams or 14.
Yeah, I think that might be a way to, anytime that you bifurcate a market into just black and white, there's all the gray in the middle you miss. But I think there's probably a substantial bit on each end to people that are purchasing, just something to use today, and the people that see these cheap prices and are like you. They're like, you know what, as much as I can carry. And so I do think there's definitely 2 types of people, and with obviously with people in between. But I think that that's a good way to think about it if you're trying to come up with your retail strategy, is to be able to serve the people that are there just to have something like small and special for today, and then the people that either are throwing like a wicked party, or they don't want to have to go back to the store until May, given the amount of stuff they've purchased.
I think you're only allowed to buy an ounce per day.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's the limit.
But I don't know. I mean, we'll find out, because I'm definitely going to test that. Because if I buy 1 ounce per store, technically, if I go to another store, they're not supposed to sell it to me. But there's no connection, though. They're not going to be able to figure that out. That's beyond the report.
Yeah. Let me know how
I'll
it works
let you know.
out for you. Yeah. You're going to end up with a pound by the end of the day, man.
So there's some trends, obviously. In 2015, 2016, pre-rolls saw the biggest leap in sales on 420, and that's come down a little bit. Beverages, concentrates, and vape pens are all on the rise, probably because they're stronger. So considering that consumers are no longer automatically associating cannabis with smoking a joint, it makes sense that they might choose to celebrate with some more esoteric products. And your opinion on that, do you think that's more about trying to get higher, or is it an evolution away from pre-rolls?
Yeah. So I think aside from even pre-rolls, we've seen that. There's growth across every single category every year. Every category's up, but definitely inhalables are becoming less and less the major player. So in 2018, as the year closed, that was the first year that we saw flower be under 50% of the market sales. In prior years, we've seen it be as high as 3/4 of the market, and so it is starting to move away. I think a lot of that is newer consumers coming into the market that maybe want a slightly different experience. But I do think that flower and pre-rolls and inhalables will probably always do quite well.
Yeah, Cannabis seems to be that quintessential party item.
That's a good Instagram shot. It doesn't matter if you like edibles. That's not a cool Instagram shot, but damn, those Cannabis are.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, social media does play a pretty big role in people's decisions. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So to that, nothing says celebration like a Cannabis.
Yeah.
So while the most popular product on 420 are mostly flower, pre-rolls, and edibles, certain products enjoy a moment in the holiday limelight. In 2017, the Cannabis segment saw an 835% sales boost over a normal weekday. While Cannabis are probably the most commonly purchased pre-roll that day, it's safe to say that the celebratory atmosphere convinced by more than a few folks to shell out $420 for Gold Leaf Garden's homogeneous hand-rolled cannabis cigar. The next big boost is going to be lip balms and THC concentrates, all which fit in the category.
Yeah, lip balms was an interesting one. It's kind of interesting. I think what we see is a lot of different people being in there that day. And so what it is a lot of people are coming in already to buy something. And with all of the merchandising that you can do, I think a lot of people just see I didn't really spend much time looking around. I usually just buy what I'm used to. I'm here anyway for something new and interesting. Let me peruse the store. Let me spend a little bit of time in here. It's a holiday. Let's embrace this and hang out for a minute.
The basket analysis from 2015 or 2016 really had topicals and tinctures as one of the last items that you kind of randomly pick up.
Yeah.
And yet fast forward 3 years and on 420 specifically, it's really kind of done a 180 where people are grabbing those things that maybe they haven't.
Yeah, topicals don't usually see a boost, and even in 2018, we didn't see a massive boost in topicals, but those lip balms did do kind of well. I'm wondering if someone had maybe, I'm not certain, but maybe someone had a branded product that was specifically for that, or maybe, trends can be influenced by a handful of stores, doing really great merchandising, and it could be a handful of stores just thought, here's a nice little inexpensive thing that's a pretty good upsell to bring our basket sizes up during that time. It's a great time to upsell if that's what you're trying to bring your sales up.
And so we kind of mentioned Generation X and Millennials, and so diving into which generation is most excited by 420. Millennials are most avid participants in the cannabis market overall, though they don't spend a lot. Their average transaction size jumped 27%, indicating that they're most moved by the holiday. So when you jump into the average item price for the days exactly 1 week before and after 420, whether it's 2015, 2016, or 2017, they all saw an interesting trend emerge. In 2015, the average item price on 420 was much lower than before or after, meaning that retailers were offering significant discounts, especially for the holiday. So the price gap between the days in question shrunk quite a bit in 2016 and shrunk even further in 2017, which could mean that fewer items were discounted. However, the overall sales still continued to rise on 420, both in 2016 and 2017, still seeing an over 100% increase in sales, which would indicate that bargain hunting isn't what brings consumers in for 420. So if it's not discounts, it's just a holiday where people are coming in and buying stuff. So I think there's an analogy in this report or another one on the 4th of July, which I found really interesting, that right now the 4th of July is probably a bigger sales day than 7/10.
Definitely that's in there. Absolutely. The 4th of July stuff that we looked at was for beer, so we were trying to draw a similar look at similar types of consumer behavior with celebratory days. You know, there's not like a beer holiday. There's maybe like Oktoberfest, but not really in the States. And so what we're trying to do is pick a traditionally very beer-heavy holiday and see, well, when a holiday is specifically about a format, specifically about cannabis, how is that different than we just know that people buy a lot more beer on July 4th because it's just a general holiday.
And you're able to make that comparison because you've recently partnered up with Nielsen, like the TV company Nielsen.
AC Nielsen.
So Headset is a cannabis-centric data aggregator, for lack of a word. And so you're partnered with Nielsen, and you're bringing more mainstream stuff like alcohol, and kind of comparing a more normalized an event like drinking with a nuanced industry like cannabis, and comparing those.
One of the great things about having a strategic alliance with Nielsen is that we can use some of their data to see how cannabis is the same and different from other things. I think none of us think that cannabis is going to act exactly the same as anything else that's out there, but it's interesting to see, you know, what sorts of things people think about when they think about, you know, traditional CPG, and how cannabis is the same in some ways and different. And, you know, that strategic alliance with Nielsen really lets us use some of that data to draw those correlations. It's been really interesting for me as the data person, for sure.
And so, I mean, I've kind of been asking, is it money? Is it the experience? And loyalty programs seem to be paying off. So what might be especially interesting to retail readers is that customers who were participants in the loyalty program had a higher boost in average basket size of 26%, as opposed to 21% for non-loyalty customers. So there's a boost of 5% if you're on a loyalty program. And I noticed that Have a Heart, they had something like 200 orders online. So if you're a loyalty customer and you're buying online, those discounts and loyalty programs just sort of snowball, and really, to my surprise, offering loyalty programs with online purchase orders, they had 200 orders, and I was there at 10 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And the queue of 200 throughout their stores is a lot to kind of walk into, so obviously that does pay off to some degree. And I think the day by itself is just obviously a boost. So the days following 420 in both 2016 2017 actually saw a small decrease in sales compared to the same day in the previous week. And so we were talking about kind of that hangover effect on 420, with sales on 419 in both years slightly higher, but not enough to be truly considered as part of the holiday boost.
Yeah, and I think that could be something that's different this year, with 420 being on a Saturday. I think we probably will see Friday come up as well as Saturday. People maybe on their way home from work, people getting ready for the weekend. That way, especially if you're concerned about like lines or getting the products you want, if the price isn't what drives you, those deep discounts on 420, perhaps you'll stop by on Friday and pick up the stuff to avoid the lines. I don't know. This is the first year, so I'm so excited to analyze it afterwards.
Well, Friday is the number one day of the week.
It is, yeah. It actually varies slightly by state. I think in one of the rec states, Saturday is actually a little bit bigger, but generally what we see is it's Friday, yeah.
Awesome. So this year, 420 is going to fall on a Saturday, full-blown weekend for the first time ever. So will the festivities spread into Friday night, or will consumers maintain reverence for the holiday and primarily shop on Saturday?
Oh, I know. That's the $1 million question, right? I did use my best crystal balls to try and figure this out, so I did get out the really good crystal balls. Definitely Friday is a really big day, and I think since it seems like people are used to shopping on Friday, my guess is when we do the post 420 analysis, we've traditionally just looked at 420 because 419 really didn't show as much of a boost. My guess is that change will be a bit different this year. So if I were a retailer, I probably would be prepared for slightly higher sales Friday afternoon than a typical Friday, in addition to that Saturday.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I'm not sure if you're planning to go out on Fridays and see, but it could be interesting just to kind of see. I'm not even sure, are there different types of consumers that buy it Friday before than the ones that come in Saturday? I don't know. I think it would be really interesting. Really looking forward to that data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I might have to go and just check it out and see what happens. We were talking about the comparison between beer and cannabis just as a celebratory component for the holiday. And so there's this comparison with cannabis and beer holidays, taking into consideration that Nielsen partnership, and basically seeing that beer on the July 4th has a 33% increase in sales compared to only 5% for cannabis during that same 4th of July weekend, whereas with 420 there's a 111% increase.
Yeah.
So it's obviously our own little holiday.
It is, yeah. I thought it was interesting to consider because there's still a lot of question about whether how alcoholic beverages how their sales are impacted by cannabis. So I thought it was interesting that while we see a slight bump around July 4th for cannabis, it's not even as high as beer. That's kind of more of beer's holiday. But the holiday isn't about beer for most people. Probably some people it's just about beer, but most people, it's family gatherings, it's celebrating, the Independence Day. And so while you use beer to celebrate, it's not just a beer holiday. 420 is a little different from that, right? That's just a holiday about cannabis. And so I think it compares nicely, like holiday consumption from a holiday specifically for a thing.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So 420 clearly drives consumers to shop. In 2018, last year, sales grew by 111% on 420. But what about the different holiday and product pairing? In the U.S., Independence Day or 4th of July is a holiday stereotypically celebrated with parades and fireworks, barbecuing, beer, family that you mentioned. And so thanks to the new strategic alliance with Nielsen, Headset is able to report on the U.S. retail alcohol market for the first time. And so I guess we'll find out what those numbers look like. And so is 420 still the biggest day in cannabis? The day before Thanksgiving is a newest holiday, well positioned to capitalize on the shopping type for Thanksgiving weekend. So whether it's 4th of July or Black Friday or New Year's Eve, we're kind of switching our priorities maybe and just going from an alcohol consumption priority to cannabis. I think in every single legal state the number of alcohol sales has decreased. In your opinion, is that a result of them switching to cannabis?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I think research is kind of mixed on how that overall impacts sales, but I think it's something that people are definitely concerned about. And I think a lot of people can at least think of personal examples that they know of where people have substituted those things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we do definitely see cannabis sales increase around, New Year's Eve, July 4th, Memorial Day weekend. It's not quite the bumps that you see in alcohol, so it doesn't seem to be as big of a trend. Maybe that won't always be the case. Maybe we'll see that grow each year. But definitely these cannabis-specific holidays, right? I don't think there's anybody that's going to celebrate 420 by going out and buying a six-pack of beer or White Claw or whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's how some people celebrate, but I think probably far and away the people that are celebrating 420 are going to do it with cannabis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every state is different, so there's no clear correlation between market age and reaction to 420, implying that consumers' reverence for the holiday is driven by cannabis culture itself and not by the retail landscape. So you're not going to have mainstream advertisers driving more sales. It's basically going to be state by state, store by store. And previously you kind of mentioned that whether it's lip balm or otherwise, that one store may be doing something really well to drive some interesting product like chocolate covered espresso beans or whatever, and they may do really well at that one store, but that's just because that's what they focus on.
That was their initiative that year, yeah, and I think you can really see that people use different types of discounting strategies. We didn't get into it quite so much in this report, we just looked at sort of average discounts and stuff. But you definitely see some different discounting strategies that people try out.
So pricing is interesting. Washington was still the state to beat in terms of the lowest average item price at $15.21. Nevada, as Headset reported in the past, had the highest average item price at $38.56. California's average item price was second highest at $27 and change, and then Colorado with the second highest average discount of 16%. So it's kind of all over the board.
Yeah, it really is. Some of those price trends are similar. Usually California is the highest, so it seemed like maybe Nevada there was even more celebration, even more expensive products purchased. But also what you see in Nevada is that really high discount. So it could be that those discounts are driving people to really think about some of those higher priced products.
Yeah, we saw last year 115% sales increase and only 16% discounted. So it's not, I mean, they're basically eliminating tax. We have 10% tax in Washington on the retail side, like regular non-cannabis. And so if this was a regular commodity, you could essentially say that they're eliminating the tax in exchange for 115% increase in sales. That's pretty good.
That's a good deal. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, that's a good deal.
That's pretty good. So it's the freaking weekend. Friday is far and away the most popular day of the week to purchase cannabis, with 18.8% of total sales last year. In 2019, 420 will fall on a Saturday for the first time since legalization. So due to this data, along with previous slides, Headset expects sales on 420 2019 to be 2 to 2.2x above normal, with Friday to be slightly significant above average as well. So for just general days of the week in 2018 last year, we saw Friday took almost 20% of sales.
Yeah.
And then Saturday was behind that at 16%. So we'll just increase that by like 100% this year?
Yeah. I think what we're going to see is, if you look at the week of 420, those Saturdays really going to be the dominant player. But I do really think that we'll see some sales increases on that Friday before as well.
Random question, do you know if stores are ramping up their inventory, or are they just going to plan on selling out?
Yeah, I'm actually not sure about that. That's not something we've looked at, but definitely maybe that's a follow-up we could do, because that is something that we report on, and that's a really big benefit of being a Headset client is
Definitely.
You do get to understand your inventory a little bit better. What we do know is that stockouts are very detrimental to business. If you don't have things to sell, you can't make money. And so at the same time, you don't want to have this massive inventory carry, so kind of finding that inventory sweet spot is really difficult. What I would hope is that the people that use Headset maybe find that sweet spot a little bit easier than people that aren't using as much data to make those decisions.
And you know who you are. I'll be stopping by on 420 and talking to you in Soto. You know who you are. You're not using Headset. You run out of stuff all the time, and it costs money. You know, the individuals that the companies that you're carrying aren't selling. Dose oil, for example, is a really inexpensive tanker at about $20 per gram. You guys sell out constantly, but you're not refilling because you're not using Headset.
What's best?
So there's some category trends for 420. Capsules and tinctures and sublingual categories commonly associated with health and wellness consistently see the weakest growth on 420. This aligns with the holiday focus on the more debaucherous side of cannabis use rather than medicinal. The vape pen categories is one of the few that saw a positive 3-year trend in 420 sales growth year after year after year. So this category has been steadily growing in the overall market share over time. So it makes sense that more and more customers choose to celebrate the holiday with a modern mode of consumption. So pre-rolls, we saw an increase in 2016 at 135%, and then 157% in 2017, 111% last year. Where do you think pre-rolls will lie this year?
Yeah, I think we're still definitely going to see a really large increase in sales. I would expect it to be, that 111% means it's about 2 times the size it was before. I think we will definitely see that this year as well. One of the reasons that what we see is unit volume of pre-rolls is the largest increase, but sales volume isn't, and the reason that's happening is because a lot of pre-rolls end up discounted during that time. So I think it depends on people's discounting strategies this year, but definitely, I think that by unit volume, again, that'll probably come out the winner.
Interesting. So they're selling more of them, but the revenue is so low because of the discounts.
Yeah. So I think, I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it's like 170% increase in unit volume and 111% increase in sales volume because they are doing the discounting on it.
Interesting. So last year, pre-rolls had the highest average discount, 21% of all categories by a considerable margin. So that's probably why.
Yeah. You know, it's a great thing to discount too. And if a lot of people are coming in, especially if you feel like trying things, pre-rolls are pretty cheap. So if you do have good discounts on pre-rolls, maybe you can have some that are discounted, some are not, and try to get both in a basket. Yeah.
So it's a day to buy in bulk. The largest flower package size saw the biggest increase in both total sales and total unit sales. What I found interesting is that half ounces were the second largest standard size and had a massive 381% increase in units and had a 292% increase in total sales. Is that a strategy around pricing that better than ounces? So if you buy 2 half ounces, that's going to be cheaper than 1 ounce. I noticed that last year.
Yeah.
It seems like a weird strategy.
Yeah, it could be. I think though, when you think about the opportunity of a day where you're getting maybe new customers in or infrequent customers in, if you can get people to try 2 things and like 2 things, now they buy 2 things. And so I think, I'm not certain, I don't know exactly what the retailers are doing, but if I were to infer what they were doing, perhaps it's trying to get more people to try more things so that we can have more products in their basket in the future.
Yeah, get an indica and sativa instead of just one.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to try something new. If you're already in that trying new things mindset, it's a good time to push people into products that that they'll like, that maybe they just haven't found yet.
So, mixed strain pre-rolls had the largest increase of any segment, implying that they were a frequent 420 add-on purchase. It's no shocker, since non-strain specific pre-rolls are often the low cost to begin with and had the highest average discount rate of any pre-roll segment at a hefty 36%. So the holiday apparently has presented shoppers with a good opportunity to try live resin, which has been one of the fastest growing concentrate varieties over the last year. So pre-roll mixed strains, 123% penetration growth on 420 alone.
Yeah. So they were in over twice as many baskets as they're normally in. And basket penetration is just a really great way to think about how many people your product is getting into the hands of, especially when we think about pre-rolls where it's a really low dollar value. I think people see, it's only 8% of sales, it's not a big category, but it's in a really big portion of baskets. It's just because they're cheaper, they're smaller. And so one of the great things about using Hedge is you can kind of start to feel all these metrics and really get an idea of what is happening during that time. And those 2 metrics juxtaposed next to each other, I think, are very important.
The infused pre-roll has gained a lot of market share in all 4 states, and it's taking away non-infused pre-roll market share. Is that the convenience factor is obvious? And I would assume that it's because people want something that's stronger. Does the data show that as well?
Yeah, it's tough to say from looking at our data. Again, like what people want, why they're doing it, we get very inferential there. But definitely, I think when you look at those products in general, they have higher THC percentages because they're infused.
And the data infers that just based on the switch to edibles and beverages. I would assume that's because of the higher concentrations and people want to get higher on that day.
I think it can be. I think also what you see is, it's, as this becomes more mainstream, what could be happening is, I want to celebrate by smoking. I have friends that, not maybe their thing. And so I say, why don't you come over? I'll get some edibles for you. It doesn't feel maybe quite the same. And it's maybe a nice way for them to start their cannabis journey. And so I think one of the reasons I'm inferring that's true is because what we often see with edible purchases is there is flour or pre-rolls in the basket. So it could be just a way, maybe it's a partner, a spouse, a friend, that you're trying to enjoy this same day with them, have a similar experience, but they just don't feel like smoking.
So no matter how you participate in the cannabis industry, you should pay attention to 420. It's consistently the single biggest day in cannabis each year, with at least double the sales of average day. So this year will fall on a Saturday for the first time. And since Fridays are typically the biggest days for sales, retailers should be ready to encourage revelry on 420 Eve as well as the holiday itself. Retailers and brands should focus on capturing the market, the wallets, and the youngest generation, those in Generation Z. So we see beverage and edible producers, 420 is your day to shine. Cannabis consumers will add 30 to 60% more products to their basket on 420, and more often than not, you're trying something new and it's an infused treat. So consumers on 420 is the day to stock up, and bulk buys are the best strategy. For flower, the sweet spot will be shy of the largest package size. So consider grabbing 2 half ounces. It may be a better deal than 1 full ounce, plus that you can try 2 different strains. And then now we're going to jump into the post 420 update, the hangover effect.
Yeah, that was from last year. After 420, we looked to see kind of what happened. It's common to see a sales hangover around big days like that. So Black Friday, for instance, there's usually a sales hangover on Saturdays, where retail trends, really dip because most people that shop that day. And then now there's a lot of retailers that have started strategies to get more people in the door on Saturdays. But we were wondering, is this trend that we see for Black Friday a similar trend we see in cannabis? Just as we're trying to decide how this industry is and isn't like traditional retail.
Every year, Headset compiles a detailed report on 420 covering everything from popular categories to demographics to cannagars. So it's one of the most popular reports, especially with cannabis retailers. However, another interesting phenomenon is to explore what happens right after 420. So Headset looked at the days leading up to, hoping to find evidence of consumers stocking up for the main event. So what they wanted to know is, does 420 have a sales hangover, or did the sales boost linger on? Turns out that it's definitely the former. So this report examines sales levels of the days leading up to and directly following 420, post 420 sales, state by state, and category trends. So sales of the week of 420 compared to an average day. When comparing the days leading up to 420 in 2018, the average sales for similar days of the week, in order to illustrate the holiday's ripple effect, the weekdays furthest from 420, which fell on Friday this year, were very close to the average. Monday 416 and Tuesday 417 saw sales at 98% and 95% of average weekdays respectively. That's pretty good.
Yeah, they looked like Monday, Tuesday looked pretty much like normal days, yeah.
So as expected, the next 2 days reflected a slight boost from shoppers stocking up on 420, with sales at 117 and 121% of average respectively. And on a day itself, sales were almost double an average Friday at 184% last year. However, the data did not show a honeymoon period after the fact. So the Saturday and Sunday after 420 saw significantly lower sales than their corresponding averages at 90 and 83% respectively. So either consumers are experiencing severe 420 fatigue, or with a more optimistic view, they just have plenty of pot left over.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is it both?
My guess is it probably is both. Yeah, you have people that decided to enjoy cannabis on that Friday, and so they're like, Saturday I'm not going to be my day. Like, I already made Friday my day for this. But I think at the same time we did see a fair amount of stocking up, and so we just have some for later, totally. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to know. Now, 90% really isn't a horrible dip in sales. That's not like the Saturday after Black Friday is, I think, the other thing I would say. We still have a really significant portion of sales happening on that day. Looks like Sunday was even quieter. I think that'll be something that's interesting this year to see, because Friday maybe people work, and so that wasn't the day they celebrated. Maybe last year some people celebrated 420 on 421. They won't have to do that this year. I don't know, but definitely something to look into afterward.
When I eat edibles, I tend to eat a lot of them, and I get hungover, and so I drink a lot of coffee. Are you guys going to have a Nielsen report where there's coffee on 421 and show the...
Right? I hadn't thought of that, but that's definitely something we could look at. That would be a really interesting thing to know for sure.
The day after, coffee sales just explode in all of the legal states.
Yeah, right? That would be for sure something cool to look at.
But it is interesting, though, state by state, there's a little bit of a difference. So while there's an overall dip in sales for the days after 420, that dip appears to be driven entirely by Washington State. So broken out in state by state data, sales on 421 in both Nevada and Colorado are actually quite strong. Nevada saw sales at 114% of average Saturday, while Colorado was 112, and yet Washington is slacking. You guys are at 71%, Washington. What's up with that?
Yeah, that was tough to say. Again, the why is a little more difficult in transaction data. It could be that Washington did some really good sales that year. It could be that it's a holiday that's just more celebrated in Washington. I don't know that we looked at, we did look at categories a little bit. I think maybe this year we can do some analysis to try to figure some of that out.
So flower is fading. So when we looked at category sales, the balance stayed fairly consistent across the week, although flower had a pretty clear hangover effect.
So what we saw was on 420, flower looked like flower usually looks. Baskets similar to what they look like. After 420 though, we saw sales of flower and pre-roll dip a little bit more than the sales of other categories. So it could be, those are the things that are generally discounted that we see a lot of people picking up. So it could be they just kind of stocked up at that time. But we don't really see that dip maybe as much in other categories.
Interesting. So it says that users might buy more than what they can smoke on the day, or perhaps there's a bit of smoke out on the big day. It's not much, but the single percentage point gains from both edibles and vape pens might corroborate that. I think with the deals, people are probably getting a lot. So the conclusion is that the data on this report shows us that while there might not be an equal and opposite reaction to 420, there's a bit of a course correction after the big day. However, sales drops are as large as 30% might seem significant. The sales bonuses on the day of and in days leading up to 420 are more than make up for those drops. So that said, retailers shouldn't plan for the party to go on forever. Using the data to stock up on products that are most popular on 420 in advance is wise, and of course, don't overdo it. So as noted in the main 420 report, flower is popular, but its sales spike have gone down over time. So here we see that the only significant decline is in a breakdown of category sales. The days following 420 could be good ones to get rid of less popular flowers with deep discounts. And while it seems logical that sales figures would drop back to normal levels, given the special occasions buyers aren't coming back the day after, that doesn't quite explain the overall dip in sales. Headset suspects that regular customers have saved their splurging for the day of and perhaps even overbought. Regardless, the 420 effect, that 420 hangover effect is not a myth. So, it's either they're too hungover, they've just bought too much. I'm going to think it's the latter, because I know that I'm going out buying more than I need.
Absolutely. I think that's a really definitely part of the effect for sure.
And so the only thing we don't know is the coffee intake.
I know, I gotta look at that. That
Next
sounds
year's
interesting.
report,
Maybe
folks.
I can look at cannabis espresso beans. I don't know.
There you go. So anything else you want to add to this? Anything you expect or want to see, or something that we should see?
I think the report was pretty complete. I'm excited this year for the Saturday to see kind of how that affects sales, especially how it interacts with Friday. See some of those consumer trends. I think every year looks a little bit different as more and more people enter the marketplace. More and more products are available in different formats. I'm excited to see how the trends have shifted for sure.
Me too.
I can't wait to go check out the stores too. It's the first 420 I can go to stores, so maybe I'll see you at one of them.
You might. We're going to start our trip at about 9:30 in the morning. We'll finish about 2:30 nonstop, and so it's 20 stores on 420.
I want to thank my guest, Liz Connor, Director of Analytics at Headset. Liz, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is Talking Hedge, your cannabis business podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.
Bye.